Hello and welcome to my channel, Tortoise&Plume. Thank you so much for watching. Today I'm going to be filming a step-by-step process of patterning a Regency Reticule. This will not be an in-depth tutorial. I'm just going to film my process of creating a pattern from scratch for a sewing project. So thank you so much for watching. I'm going to be going to a Regency event at the end of the month, so I needed a little reticule to keep my phone and my chapstick and my keys. So I have chosen these two images. I really like the shape of the reticule on the right, so that's going to be my reference photo. I'm going to do something a little similar, but I do like the bold geometric lines on the one on the left, so I'm going to make my design a little similar to this. So first I'm laying out all of my patterning rulers, my French curve, my hip curve, all of that, and I'm going to quickly go through my patterning bag and everything I've got inside. So this is my pattern drafting bag that I use. I'll just quickly go through all of the tools that I'm going to be using, or that I use on a regular basis. So this is my pencil case, so a bag within a bag, that's very me. I have a drafting pencil here. It can get a very sharp point, so you can find them in any art supply store. I have colored pencils in case I later need to make additions or changes to the pattern, an eraser, and then a thumbtack. And the thumbtack I use to make circles with all of my specialty circle rulers. Not very special, but... then I've got my paper scissors. They are clearly marked. I only use those to cut paper. And I've then got my selection of rulers. This is a small 1x6 inch ruler, great for seam allowances. I then have my seam gauge, and it's got a hole in the upper corner, the upper left corner. You can actually set your thumbtack in that and use it as a sort of circle drawing compass. I think that's what they call them, yeah. As a little compass, drawing compass. Then we also have a larger circle drawing ruler, and that you just stick your pencil in one of these holes, you put your thumbtack in the bottom hole. You can make up to a 24-inch diameter circle with this ruler. I have an artist's curve for tight little curves, and then I've got my invisible Scotch tape. I only use invisible for patterning because I can draw in pencil over it easily. I then have my tailor's wheel. I use this to transfer my pattern to another paper, or like a tissue pattern that you get at the store. I will transfer it to heavier weight paper so it doesn't tear when I'm using it. I then have a pattern punch. This punches out your match points or your notches on patterns. And a calculator, because sometimes those fractions are awful. And extra paper to fill in adjustments or fill in darts if I need it. So that's a quick overview of what I use for patterning. So first I'm going to lay out my patterning paper. I love using gridded patterning paper, it's my favorite, and I've got my reference image right there for me. I'm going to cut out just a little chunk of patterning paper, make sure that my phone will fit well in that area, because that's an incredibly important thing to bring. And I'm going to draw out the rough size of my reticule. So right here I'm just determining the center point of my reticule. I'm drawing two curves on the lower end and I'm kind of curving in the sides, so I want to make sure everything is nice and even when I do this. So I'm just making a mark at the bottom, making a mark at the top, drawing between them so I have that center line that I follow. So now I'm going to add in the curves and details of the reticule bag itself. I want to make sure that my phone will fit in the bottom, along the bottom edge of the bag. So I want to measure so that the width of that phone can kind of sit comfortably. I'm going to mark in about 2 inches from the bottom edge and about 3 inches up from the bottom, so it's a little rectangle. I kind of like that angle a little bit better. It's a little bit more dramatic than the original bag. So that's what I'm doing. I'm getting my French curve to kind of mark out the curve that I like. And with this French curve, I can actually mark the curve itself so that I know what area of that curve I'm using. So I can transfer it to the other side and know that both curves are going to be accurate. They're going to be the same curve. So now what I'm doing is I'm deciding how much I want the curve to come in on this side. So I've decided on about a 1/2 inch. I feel like that gives a nice little subtle curve out at the bottom. And I'm lining that up, making sure it looks nice. I do want a little bit of a facing along the top. So you'll notice now I'm marking down 2 inches because when I open my bag, I don't want you to be able to just see right into the lining. It's just going to be like a cotton lining. So I'm going to have that facing come down 2 inches of my fashion fabric. I do want to measure down 2 inches from my 2-inch facing, so 2 inches down from the top of the bag. That's where my facing will attach. I don't want to start my curve any higher than that because then my facing will be narrower than the outside of my bag. So now I'm using my hip curve to create a nice subtle curve from the top of the reticule down to that bottom corner. I'm using inch marker 7 and 12, making a note of that so that I've got the same curve on both sides. And when I'm done with that, I'm just going to check to make sure that my phone fits, and it does. Awesome. Now I'm just going to erase some of the extra lines that I don't need now that I've got the basic shape. I'm going to next add the seam allowance, so I don't want those lines confusing me. I'll also redraw any lines that I've accidentally erased, so that's what I'm doing here. My next step is to add seam allowance. For this project, I'm using 1/2 inch seam allowance, but depending on my project, I'll use either a 1/4 inch seam allowance or 1/2 inch seam allowance. And again, I'm just kind of going around and erasing stuff that I didn't get to. I want to make sure that I've got a clean seam allowance line so that when I cut, I'm not cutting anything accidentally. So I'm just going to continue along with my 1/2 inch seam allowance around the rest of my reticule. So now that I have my seam allowance created, I'm going to mark out where my facing is going to end, and then from there I'm going to make a rough estimate of my design. I really love geometric design, so I'm going to kind of take a cue from the green reticule I showed earlier that had a band of spangles around the bottom edge and the top edge, so I'm going to kind of mimic that a little bit. I want a border around my reticule. I think I might want a few borders around my reticule. So I'm measuring in 1/2 inch from the edge of my reticule in a dashed line. That's going to be my first border. And I really love just like really nice sharp lines. So to transfer this design over to my fashion fabric, I'm actually going to I'd like place my pattern on top of my fabric and then tack or baste through my dashed lines so that I have a really nice even transfer. So sadly this pattern is going to be destroyed in the using it, but I can always create another one. So I'm just going to continue with this dashed line. I believe I'm on my second border, so I'm going to do a few borders and then I'll be able to cut this out. Now that I have finished a border, I'm going to take a step back, look at it, see if I like that design, and I'm actually going to add another border 1/2 inch inside that first border. That looks great, so now I'm going to cut out my pattern using my 1/2 inch seam allowance that I built in, and then I will show you in my next video how to then use this and transfer it to your fashion fabric. So there is my pattern. It fits my phone. I'm checking the proportion of my little tassel balls that I have painted black to match my fabric. That's what those little olive looking things are. Just checking the facing, folding it down to make sure that it is trued, that it is the same size as the outer layer. I don't want it to pucker and gap. Checking final proportions, and it's good to go. Thank you again so much for watching. My next video I'm going to show you how to transfer your design, prep for beading, do all the beading. I'll have a tassel video and a construction video. So please do subscribe if you want to see more. You can check out my website, my Instagram, those are linked below. And I really hope to see you guys again. Thank you again so much for watching. Have a great day, and I'll see you later. Bye.